Friends, my channel name is Indian Epic History. Search this channel name on YouTube and select playlist option for all videos like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puran from starting. Otherwise, click the channel name or picture below the video, then go to the playlist. This is Buri Critical Mahabharata Books section 21, Mantra Parva. Yudhishthira said, "Because you are wise, you have said what no one else could have said. No one can be seen on earth who dispels doubts the way you do. In each the every household there are kings who do that which is for the welfare of their own, but none of them has attained the status of emperor, because the title of emperor encompasses everything. One who knows the power of others does not praise himself. He who is praised in comparison with others is worshipped. The earth is large and extensive and covered with many gems. O extender of the Vrishni lineage, it is by traveling far that one gets to know what is best. I consider tranquility to be supreme, because from that freedom follows. I do not think the highest goal can be attained if I begin this right. O Janardana, the wise ones who are born in every lineage know this. Sometimes one among them will become supreme. Bhima said, "A king who has no enterprise is like an anthill. One who tries to rule a stronger one without a plan is weak, but if the plan is right, even a weak and enterprising king can defeat a strong enemy and attain goals that bring one's welfare. There is plan in Krishna, strength in me, and victory in Partha Dhananjaya. Like three sacrificial fires, we will consume Magadha." Krishna said, "A child grabs without understanding the consequence of the action. Therefore, an enemy of immature understanding is not tolerated." We have heard that five have become emperors: Yuvanashva by eliminating taxes, Bhagirath through protection, Kartavirya through the powers of his austerities, the Lord Bharata through his power, and Maruta through his wealth. O belong the Bharata lineage, know that in accordance with the principles of Dharma and Artha, Bhagiratha's son Jarasandha is now the one to be punished. O 101 dynasties of king have failed to accept his suzerainty, and he therefore claims his empire through forces. Kings who possesses jewels offer him homage. Since he has even evil from childhood, he is not content even with that. He uses force to uh, conquer foremost men and kings who have been anointed. Not a single man can be seen who does not offer him tribute. O Partha, thus has he brought under his power those kings who number almost 100. How can a weaker king advance to him with hostile intent? O bull among the Bharata lineage, how can those kings who have been cleansed and washed like animals in Pashupati's house be happy with their fame? It has been said that a Kshatriya is honored when he is killed by weapons. Why should we then not collectively opposes the Magadha? O king, Jarasandha has already brought under his sway 66 kings and waits for the others to complete his cruel act. He who obstructs him from accomplishing this will obtain blazing fame. He who defeats Jarasandha will certainly become emperor. Yudhishthira said, "Intent on my selfish interest of becoming an emperor, how can I force you to go out? Depending own strength and courage alone. Bhima and Arjuna are my eyes, and you, Janardana, are my mind. What kind of life will be left for me without my eyes and my mind? When you have made Jarasandha's invincible and valorous forces, exhaustion alone will defeat you. What will your efforts serve? There is disaster if the opposite of what is intended becomes the outcome. O Janardana, listen to my thoughts. I think it best to always refrain from this course of action. My heart is against it. The Rashya is too difficult to accomplish. Besampana said Partha, who had obtained the supreme bow, the two inexhaustible quarters, the chariots, the pennants, and the Sava, now spoke these words to Yudhishthira: O king, I have obtained the bow, weapons, arrow, valor, allies, land, fame, and strength. Through they are desired, it is difficult to achieve them. Those who are learned always praise the greatness of noble lineages, but nothing equals power and nothing pleases me as much as valor. What purpose is served if one is born in noble lineages but has no valor? O king, a Kshatriya's livelihood is always defeat. He who has valor but lacks of other qualities we will still vanquish his enemies. What purpose is served if one possesses all the qualities but lacks valor? All qualities exist in nascent from in valor. Mental concentration, enterprise, and fortune are the causes of victory. One who possesses the forces but it careless does not succeed and is not favored by fortune. It is because of this that a powerful one perishes when confronted with his foes. Misery compasses those without strength and also strong ones who are deluded. A king who wishes to attain victory must forsake both these routes of destruction. There is nothing that can surpass the act of destroying Jarasandha and freeing the kings when achieving the sacrifice. If we do not attempt this, we will certainly be regarded as bereft of all qualities. O king, we certainly possess the qualities. Why do you doubt our qualities? Red garments are easily available to those who later wish to obtain peace of mind. But wishing to see you emperor first, we will therefore fight with the enemy. Vasudeva said Arjuna has exhibited the mind of one born is in the Bharata lineage, especially of one who is Kunti's son. We do not know the time of our death, whether it will be night or day, nor have we heard of anyone attaining immortality by avoiding battle. For any man, the act that pleases the heart is one of attacking enemies in accordance with principles that are laid down. Any encounter guided by good policy attains success. However, if both sides are equal, there is uncertainly, but equality between the two never happens. If that is the case, why should we not adopt a policy to approach the enemy and destroy him like a river destroying a tree? We will cover our weakness and exploit those of the enemy. It is the policy of the intelligent not to attack stronger enemies with battle formations and armies. This appeals to me too. If we can enter the enemy's abode without armies, attack him, and attain our objective, we will not be blamed. O bull among men, he alone enjoys eternal royal fortune, like the soul of all beings. But if he perishes, his forces perish. desiring to free our relatives even if we are killing by his survivors. After we have killed him in battle, we will attain heaven. Yudhishthira asked, O Krishna, who is this Jarasandha? What is his valor and prowess that he has not been burnt up when he touched you like a mouth before a flame? Krishna replied, O king, listen to Jarasandha's valor and prowess. Learn why he has been spread by us, through he has caused us displeasure in many ways. There was a king named Brihadratha. He was the powerful ruler and lord of Magadha. He was proud in battle and had three Akshohinis. He was handsome, valorous, fortunate, and extremely powerful. His body always had sacrificial marks, and he had the appearance of a second chakra. Shakra means Indra. He was like the sun's energy, like the earth in forbearance, like the destroyer Yama in his anger, and like uh, Vajravana in prosperity, O supreme among those of the Bharata lineage, like the rays of the sun, the entire earth was covered by qualities his noble lineage brought. O bull among those of the Bharata lineage, that immensely valorous and married the twin daughters of the king of Kashi, blessed with beauty and riches. That bull among men had a contract in a presence of his wives that he would love them equally and not show preferences. O Lord of men, this king then shone with his beloved and suitable wives like elephant with two she elephants. Between them, the Lord of the earth was resplendent like the embodied ocean between the Ganga and the Yamuna. His youth passed away, immersed in pleasures, but no son was born to him to carry forward his lineage. Through he performed many auspicious rites, oblations, and sacrifices so as to obtain a son. But the best of kings did not obtain a son to extend his lineage. One day he heard that Chanda Kaushika, the son of the great soul Kakshipa, descended from Gautama, had become tired of ascetic pursuits, roaming as he willed. He had come and had sought shelter under a tree. The king and his wife satisfied him with offspring of all kinds of jewels. That supreme among rishis was always truthful and devoted to the truth. He spoke to the king thus: O king, I am satisfied with you. You who are devoted to your vows, ask for a boon. Brihadratha and his wives bowed down before him in a voice choked with tears of despair, since there was no prospect of setting eyes on a son. Brihadratha said, O illustrious Lord, I am about to give up my kingdom and depart from the austerities of the forest. I am unfortunate. What will I do with a boon or with the kingdom? On hearing this, the sage seated under the shade of a mango tree controlled his senses and began to meditate. A mango fell into the lap of the seated sage. It was whole, without holes, and without being touched by the beak of birds. That supreme among sages picked it up and, pronouncing a mantra over it, handed the king them that unblemished fruit. As mean of obtaining a son, the immensely wise sage, great sage, spoke to the king, O king, depart. Your wish has been fulfilled, O Lord of man, return, O bull among the Bharata lineage, remembering the contract, the supreme of kings gave the single fruit to his two wives, dividing the fruit into two equal parts. The beautiful ones ate it. The sage always spoke the truth, and what he had said was certain. They both conceived as a result of eating the fruit. On seeing them, the king became extremely happy. O king, O immensely wise one, after some time, when the appropriate time arrived, the two queens gave birth to two half bodies. Each had one eyes, one arms, one leg, half a stomach, half a face, and half a buttock. At the sight of these half bodies, the two of them were miserable and trembled. The anxious sisters consulted each other. In great misery, they abandoned the two half bodies through they had life in them. The two midwives carefully wrapped up those imperfectly born half bodies and left the inner quarters through a back gate. Discarding them, they returned in haste. O tiger woman, there was a Rakshasa woman named Jara, and she noticed them. When they had been thrown at a crossroads, she lived on flesh and blood. Driven by destiny, that Rakshasa woman unite the two bodies as it would become easier to carry. O bull among men, as soon as the two halves were united, they become one body, and a brave child emerged. O king, the Rakshasa woman eyes winded in amazement. She was no longer able to carry the child, whose body was as hard as Vajra. The child baled his copper red hands into fists, inserted them in his mouth, and began to roar like a monsoon cloud heavy with rain. O tiger among men, O destroyer of enemies, extremely alarmed at the sound, the inmates of the inner quarters rushed out, together with the king, weak and jaded through their breasts were full of milk. The two queens suddenly came out and reclaimed their son. On seeing them in that condition, and on seeing the king, who was so desirous of obtaining a son, and also on seeing the strong child, the Rakshasa woman reflected, I live in the kingdom of a king who desired to obtain a son. Therefore, I should not carry off this small child like a strip of cloud hides the sun. Assuming human form, she spoke to the Lord of Men. The Rakshasa said, O Brihadrata, this is your son. Accept him from me as a gift. He was born in the wombs of your two wives as a result of the boon granted by the Brahmana. He was abandoned by the midwives but has been saved by me, O supreme among those of the Bharat lineage. At that, on obtaining the son, the beautiful daughters of the king of Kashi sprinkled him with the milk that was gushing out. Having seen all these and understood, the king was delighted. In human form, with a complexion like that of pure gold, the Rakshasa woman did not look like a Rakshasa at all. The king asked, Who are you, as golden as the womb of a lotus? You have given me my son, O fortunate one, you appear to me like a goddess. Please speak. The Rakshasa said, O Lord of Kings, O fortunate one, I am a Rakshasa woman named Jara, who can assure any form at will, worshipped by everyone. I live happily in your inhabitation, O righteous one, O king. Therefore, I have always through about offering you a favor in return. It so happened that I saw the two half bodies of your son. On my accidentally uniting them, the sun surfaced. O great king, this was because of your own good fortune. I was only the instrument. Krishna said, O king, having said this, she disappeared then and there. The king picked up the boy and entered his own house. The king then performed all the necessary rites for the child. He commanded that a great festival should be held in Magadha in honor of the Rakshasa. The father was the equal of Prajapati and bestowed a name of him. Since he had been united by Jara, he came to be known as Jarasandha. The son of the king of Magadha grew up and became endowed with great energy, large and strong like a fire, into which oblations have been offered. After some time had passed, Chandrakoshika, the illustrious and great ascetic, once again come to Magadha, delighted At his arrival, Brihadratha went out with his advisors, subjects, wives, and sons. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the king showed him homage with water for washing the feet, gifts due to a guest, and water to wash his mouth. Then he offered him his son and his kingdom, O king. The illustrious Rishi accepted the king's worship and, with a happy heart, told the one from Magadha, O king, everything is known to me through my divine side, O Indra among kings. Listen to what will happen to your son. No king will be able to equal his valor, yes, one in valor, O Lord of the earth, like the currents of rivers make no impression on mountains. Weapons hurled by the gods will cause him no pain. He will blaze forth over the heads of all those who have been consecrated and rob their light the way the sun shines over the lights of stars like moths to a flame. King who possesses large armies and mounts will meet their destruction before him like the Lord of rivers, and Rebutels receives a swollen river water during the monsoon. He will seize the combined prosperity of all the kings like the earth, the abode of all groups extensively supports good and evil. With immense strength, he will justly uphold the four Varnas. All the rulers of men will be under his subjugation, just as all beings are subservient to the breath of life in their bodies. The Magadha, immensely stronger than everything in all the worlds, will witness with his own eyes Rudra Mahadeva Hara, the destroyer of Tripura, or destroyer of your armies. Having said this, the sage threw about all the acts he had to perform and dismissed King Brihadratha. With his relatives and kin, the ruler of Magadha returned to his city and instated Jarasandha. King Brihadratha became detached from worldly pleasures. After instating Jarasandha, King Brihadratha, followed by his two wives, then left for the forest to lead a life of austerities. Or descendant of the Bharata lineage, after his father and two mothers had retired to the forest for austerities, Jarasandha subjugated the kings with his own valor. After a long time of austerities in the forest, King Brihadratha and his wives attained heaven by virtue of their austerities. He had Hamsha and Divaka, incapable of being killed with any weapons. They were best among the intelligent in their counsel and skilled in the arts of war. I have already told you about these mighty ones earlier. My view is that these three were more than a match for the three worlds. O glorious one, O great king, such is the one whom the powerful Kukuras, Andhakas, and Vishnis ignored because that was the right policy. Next section, Jarasandha Parva. So, next section, chapter 18, Sabha Parva. Vasudeva said, Hamsha and Divaka have fallen, Kamsha and his advisors have been killed. The time has therefore arrived for Jarasandha's killing. He is incapable of being defeated in battle by all the gods and the demons, but we understand he is capable of being vanquished in a battle of breath. Policy exists in me, power exists in Bhima, valor exists in Arjuna. O king, we will overcome him like three fires. If that Lord of Man is confronted by the three of us alone, there is no doubt that he will engage one of us in a duel. Out of contempt for the worlds and his pride in himself, he will certainly challenge Bhimsena to a duel. The mighty armed and immensely strong Bhimsena in his match, like that is of the worlds that confront their destruction. If your heart knows and if you have confidence in me, then without losing any more time, answered Bhimsena and Arjuna to me. Vaishnampana said, having been thus addressed by the illustrious one, and on seeing Bhima and Partha standing there with smiles on their faces, Yudhishthira replied, O Achyuta, do not speak to me in that fashion. You are the lord of the Pandavas. We seek refuge with you. O Govinda, everything that you have said is right. You never lead those whom Lakshmi has forsaken. As I follow your instruction, Jarasandha is dead. The kings have been set free. I have achieved the Rashtriya or supreme among men. You are the one who acts fast, acts so that I can accomplish this task for the world like a miserable and diseased man and like one without dharma, kama, and artha. I have no intention to live without the three of you. There is no Partha without Shauri. There is no Shauri without Pandava. It is my view that there is nothing in the world that cannot be conquered by the two Krishnas. Two Krishna means Arjuna and Vasudeva. This handsome Brikodara means Bhima is supreme among all strong ones. What can this immensely famous and glorious one not accomplish when he is with the two of you? When led properly, forces perform supreme deeds. The learned said that forces without skilled leadership are blind and benumbed. The wise always conduct water to places that are low. Those who are wise always lead their forces to places where there are holes. For accomplishing our task, we will therefore seek refuge with Govinda, who is a man famous in the world and is knowledgeable about policy. Krishna's strength comes from his wisdom, and he knows the method of the means. Of if one wishes to accomplish one's objectives, one should place him place him at the forefront. For the accomplishment of our objective, let Partha Arjuna follow Krishna, the best of the Yadavas, and let Bhima follow Dhananjaya. Policy, victory, and strength will find success in valor. Having been thus addressed, the three brothers, Vashneya and two Pandavas, left for Magadha. They were radiant in the attire of Brahmanas who had completed their studies. Their well wishers bade them farewell with affectionate words. Their bodies were like the sun, the moon, and the fire, inflamed with anger at the oppression of their relatives. Their bodies were then terrible to behold. On seeing the two Krishnas invincible in battle, united in the same purpose that and with Bhima at their forefront, it was thought that Jarasandha was already dead. The two great souled ones were the lords of all deeds, everything that drove the deeds of Dharma, Artha, and Kama, having left the lands of the Kurus and traversing the middle of Kurujangala, they reached the beautiful Padmashara and traversed Kalakuta. They then crossed Gandaki and Shona and Shadanira. All these rivers arise from that some mountain. After crossing the beautiful Sarayu, they saw the eastern Koshala kingdom. Passing through it, they went to Mithila, crossing the river Mala and Charmanavati. Crossing the Ganga and the Shona, all the three headed eastwards and arrived at the indestructible region of Magadha, covered with Kurava trees. Ascending Mount Goratha, they saw the city of Magadha, always resplendent with cattle, overflowing with water, and full of beautiful groups. Vasudeva said, O Partha, this is the great and beautiful city of Magadha. It is rich in cattle and is always full of water. It is prosperous and has no disease and has many splendid mansions. O Tata, there are five large mountains, the expensive Behara, Baraha, Brishava, Rishigiri, and the beautiful Chaitya. These five giant mountains peaks are covered with trees and cool shade, and through separate seem to collectively protect Giribraja. They seem to be concealed in a forest of fragrant and beautiful Lodra trees, beloved by lovers, and with the tips of their branches covered with blossoms. It was here that the great soul sage Gautama rigid in his vows begot on Ushinara's Shudra daughters sons like Kakshivana, because he lived here in this place and because the kings here showed him homage. Gautama left the Magadha lineage of Arjuna. It was here that once upon a time Anga, Banga, and other greatly powerful kings come to Gautama's abode and found happiness. O Partha, behold the beautiful array of Priyalas and the charming Lodras growing near Gautama's abode. Arbuda and Shakrabapi serpents who scourged their enemies lived here. This was the abode and Swastika and the supreme serpent Mani. Because of Mani, Magadha is never avoided by clouds. Koshika and Gautama have indeed extended their favors here. Jarasandha imagines that the success of his objectives will continue, but we are about to attack him, and today his pride will be struck down. Vishampana said after these words, all the brothers, Vashneya and the two Pandavas, with immense vigor, started for the city of Magadha and neared the impregnable Giribraja. The city was full of cheerful and healthy citizens with large numbers of the four Varnas and enlivened with festivities. They avoided the giant mountains and was the gate of the city, a place where Brihadratha's descendants and the citizens used to worship. That is the place where Brihadratha killed the bean eating Rishabha. Having killed the beam eater, he had three cattle drums made, the stretching the hide over them, had these placed in his city. Their divine blossom showered when the cattle drums were sounded. They rushed to the end where Chaitya was beloved by inhabitants of Magadha. In their desire to kill Jarasandha, it was like placing their feet on his head. The peak was fixed, immensely large and ancient. It was always worshipped with flowers and garlands and was firmly established. With their large and mighty arms, the heroes broke it down. They then saw the city of Magadha and entered it. At that time, the priests were showing homage to King Jarasandha. While he was seated on an elephant, they carried a secret fire around him. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the three of them entered, ready to do battle with Jarasandha, dressed as devoted Snatakas and with no weapons other than their bare arms. They saw the supremely prosperous shops stocked with food and garlands, swollen with objects of every quality and with every object that satisfies desire. Having witnessed the prosperity along the streets, those supreme among men, Krishna, Bhima, and Dhananjaya, proceeded along the royal road of those immensely powerful ones, forcibly grabbed garlands from a garland maker. Then, attired in many colored garments adorned with garland and beautiful earrings, they entered the palace of the wise Jarasandha, like lion from the Himalayas looking at a pen full of cattle. O great king, the arms of those mighty armed warriors were smashed with a sandal and aloe paste. They shone in radiance like pillars made of rock. On seeing them as large as elephants, with shoulders and chests as tall and broad as salad tree, the inhabitants of Magadha were astounded. Those bulls among men, immensely strong, passed through three rooms that were full of pupil and proudly arrived before the king. Jarasandha arose and greeted them and showed them homage with water to wash the feet, gifts due to a guest, and a mixture with honey as is prescribed. Having shown these courtesies, the lordly king welcomed them, O king. This was because this was the vow famous on earth, which he followed whenever he learned that Snataka Brahmanas had arrived. Even if it was the middle of the night, the king, who was an inquirer, arose to greet them. On seeing their strange attire, Jarasandha, supreme among kings, approached them and was astonished, O supreme among the Bharata lineage, as soon as those bulls among men and slayer of enemies saw Jarasandha, they spoke thus, O king, may there be health and welfare for you in everything, O tiger among kings. Having said this, they stood there looking at the king and at each other, O Indra among kings. Jarasandha then told the Pandavas and the Yadava, who were disguised as Brahmanas, please be seated, blazing in radiance like fires at a sacrifice. Those three bulls among men then took their seats, or descended of the Kuru lineage. Then King Jarasandha, always devoted to the truth, spoke to them in a tone of disapproval because of they were dressed. This much is known to me. Now where on earth, nowhere in the world of man do Brahmanas who observe the Snataka vow ever outwardly adorn themselves with garlands and fragrant paste. Who are you thus adorned in flowers? Through your arms bear the marks of welding bowstrings. You seem to be Brahmanas, but you bear the proud signs of Kshatriyas. You are dressed in colorful attire and you outwardly sports garlands and fragrant paste. Tell me who you truly are. Truth is the ornament of kings. Why did you break down the Chaitya mountain and enter my abode by means other than through the proper gate? Are you so fearless as to insult the king? This act does not match with your proposed character. So tell me what your intention is. The Brahmana's valor is particularly in his speech. You had arrived before me in this appropriate way, and you declined to accept the homage I offered you in courtesy. Why have you come to me? At these words, the great soul Krishna, skilled in the use of words, replied in these words that were both serene and grave. O king, know that Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas all possess the right to observe Snataka vows. There are rules that are general and those that are specific. A Kshatriya who observes specific rules always obtain great prosperity. Good fortune is certain for those who adorn themselves with flowers, and we have therefore worn them. A Kshatriya's valor is in his arms. His valor is not in the power of speech, O son of Brihadratha. It has thus been said that his speech is never heard. O King Brahman, Brahma has placed his own energy in the arms of Kshatriyas. If you wish to witness it, there is no doubt that you will witness it today. The wise always enter the house of a well-wisher through a gate, but use that which is not a gate for the house of an enemy. That is the reason we have avoided your gate. Know that whenever we enter the house of an enemy to accomplish an objective, we never accept his homage. That is our eternal vow. Jarasandha said, I do not recall that I have ever exhibited any enmity towards you. After reflection, I cannot see any evil act I have done towards you, O Brahmanas. If I have never done an evil act and am innocent, why do you regard me as an enemy? Tell me honestly, because that is the principle followed by the truthful. There is no doubt that If injury is done to an innocent man, there is a violation of dharma and one's mind suffers. Even if one is a Kshatriya, a man may be knowledgeable in the ways of dharma and may be great in the rigid observance of vows. But if he acts perversely and wickedly, he hurts his own welfare. You know that in the three worlds, I am supreme among righteous ones in the practice of the dharma of Kshatriyas. I never hurt my subjects. Therefore, you speak in delusion. Vasudeva replied, O great king, there is someone from a lineage who has to undertake the task about lineage requires. The three of us have acted against you at his request, O king. The Kshatriyas who live in the world have been abducted by you, having committed this cruel act. How can you think of yourself as innocent, O Supremo among kings? How can a king do violence to honest kings? Having oppressed the kings, you wish to sacrifice them to Rudra, O Brihadrata's son. This act of yours may touch us too. We follow Dharma and are capable of protecting Dharma. Human sacrifices have never been seen. Why do you wish to sacrifice humans to the god Shankara? You are of the same Varna, yet you are treating those of the same Varna as animals. O Jarasandha, is there any other mind that is as perverted as yours? We help all those who are distressed for the protection of our kin. We have come here to counter you, the one who is acting so as to destroy our kin. O king, if you think that there is no man among the Kshatriyas of this world who can do this, your mind is greatly deluded, O king. We Kshatriya who knows the nature of his own noble birth will not wish to attain unparalleled heaven by falling in the field of battle. O ruler of Magadha, with their minds on heaven, know that Kshatriyas of the world are constructed in the sacrifice of battles and worship them. O king, victory is the womb of heaven. Great fame is the womb of heaven. Austerities are the womb of heaven, and so is the strength root of battle. These are the qualities of the ever victorious Indra. It is by being focused on this that Shatakratu defeated the demons and is the protector of the world. What can be a better road to heaven than a battle with someone like you, since you are proud of the strength of your extensive Magadha army? O king, do not deprecate others. Valor exists in every man. O Lord of men, you are superior only if you don't know of valor equal to your, and as long as glory equals to yours is not known. O king, listen to me when I say we are capable of uh, equaling it. O Magadha, conquer your ego and pride when you are in the presence of your equals. Do not go to Yama's abode with your sons, your ministers, and your armies. Dambodharva, Kartavirya, Uttara, and Brihadratha, these kings and their forces were destroyed here because they ignored their superiors. We who wish to liberate the capable kings are not self proclaimed Brahmanas. I am Shauri, Harikesha means Krishna, and these two brave men are the two Pandavas. O king, O Magadha, stand firm. We are challenging you. Either liberate all the kings or go to Yama's abode. Jarasandha said, I never take a king until I have vanquished him. Who is here who has not been vanquished? Whom have I not conquered? O Krishna, it has been said that the livelihood and dharma of Kshatriyas is to bring others under his sway through valor and then do as he pleases. O Krishna, these kings have been collected for a divine purpose, remembering the duty of Kshatriyas. How can I free them today out of fear? I am prepared for fight, army against army, one against ones, or one against two or three, all at the same time or separately. Vishampana said, having said this, the king gave orders that Sahadeva should be instead the readied himself to do battle with those whose deeds were terrible. O Bulamang Bharata lineage, O king, when the time for battle approached, the king remembered his generals Kaushika and Chitrasena, whose names in this world had been Hamsha and Divaka. These were names that had earlier been renowned and worshipped by all the people in the world of men. O King, O Tiger among men, and the Lord Shauri, supreme among strong ones with a valor equal to that of tigers, also remembered. This did the truthful Achyuta remember. It had been destined that Jarasandha would be killed by the valorous Bhima. Madhusudana, the younger brother of Haldhara, Balrama, foremost among those who have controlled themselves, wished to show respect to Brahma and did not wish to kill him himself. Next chapter, Vishampana said, then Adhokakshaja, descended of the Yadu lineage and eloquent in speech, spoke to King Jarasandha, who had resolved to do battle. O king, with which one of us three have you made up your mind to fight? Who among us should be ready for the battle? O king, having been thus addressed by Krishna, the immensely radiant Magadha Jarasandha decided to do battle with Bhimsena. The priest brought cheap herbs for alleviating pain and restoring consciousness to Jarasandha, who was impatient for the fight. A famous and learned Brahmana performed the benedictions. In accordance with the dharma of Kshatriyas, Jarasandha dressed himself appropriately. He removed his crown and tied up his hair. Jarasandha arose like an ocean that burst through the shoreline. The intelligent king spoke to Bhima, whose valor was terrible. O Bhima, I will fight with you. It is better to be vanquisher by a superior one. Having said this, the immensely energetic Jarasandha, conqueror of enemies, rushed to Bhimsena like the demon Bali once rushed to Shakra, means Indra. After consultations with Krishna, the powerful Bhimsena had also had beneficence performed and aged to fight, advanced towards Jarasandha. Those two supreme warriors, tigers among men, and armed only with their bare arms, engaged each other, extremely aged and each desiring to defeat to other. The sound of grasping, holding, and releasing of the arms then resounded with a terrible roar, like the roar of thunderbolts striking mountains. Both of them were the strongest among those who were strong and were supreme in their agedness. Desiring victory, each sought to exploit weakness in the other. O king, this duel between the powerful ones was like that between Vashabha, means Indra, and Vitrasura, and the terrible duels sometimes drove away the crowds that were near. They pulled each other forward and broke away from each other's holds. They threw an other one down and to the sides, dragging and grabbing the thighs. They insulted each other in loud words. They struck each other with rock-like blows. With broad shoulders and long arms, the two skilled fighters rained blows on each other with arms that were like iron clubs. The duel started on the first day of the month of Kartika. First day, the fight duel started on the first day of the month of Kartika. Ceaselessly he went on the day and night. The great soul fighters were still engaged on the 13th day, but On the night of the 14th day, the Magadha withdrew as he was exhausted. O king, on seeing that the king was tired, Jarasandha spoke as if to Bhima of terrible deeds. O Kaunteya Bhima, one should not press down on an enemy who is weakened in battle. If pressed down at such a time, he might completely give up his soul. O Kaunteya, therefore, you should not press down upon the king. O bull among Bharatas, fight him with your arms so that he can be an equal. From these words of Krishna, the Pandava Bhima, the destroyer of enemy warriors, got to know Jarasandha's weakness and determined to kill him. Brikodara, descendant of the Kuru lineage and chief among those who are strong, then seized the unvanquished Jarasandha with the intention of vanquishing him. Next chapter 22, Vaishampana said, with his mind firmly set on the desire of killing Jarasandha, Bhimsena then spoke to Krishna of the Yadava lineage. O Krishna, O tiger among the Yadu lineage, now that I have guarded up by loincloth, the evil one shouldn't be spared by me of his life. Having been thus addressed, Krishna, tiger among men, then replied to Brikodara so as to rush him because he wanted to see Jarasandha dead. O Bhima, then quickly show us the spirit that you have got from the gods and the power you have got from the wind. Show it on Jarasandha. At these words, the immensely strong Bhima, the destroyer of enemies, lifted up the powerful Jarasandha. O bull among the Bharata lineage, O king, he wheeled him around 100 times. Then, throwing him down on his knee, he broke his back into two. Trampling him down, he roared out aloud. When Jarasandha was thus pressed down and the Pandava roared, there was such as there was such a loud roar that all beings were terrified. All those from Magadha were benumbed, and expectant woman aborted on hearing Bhimsen and Jarasandha's roars. Has the Himalaya mountain on the earth been torn apart on hearing Bhimsena's roars? This is what the radiance of Magadha thought. At night, the destroyer of enemies left the king's dead body at the gate of the palace as if he was asleep and leapt. Krishna had Jarasandha's chariot with pennants yoked. He asked the two brothers to ascend it and set his relatives free. Having been freed from their great fear, the king and lord of the earth presented many gems of Krishna worthy of bearing gems, unhurt arms and weapons, and vanquishing his enemy, he mounted the divine chariot and left Giribraja with the kings. With the two brothers as warriors and with Krishna as the chariot was incapable of being conquered by all the kings and seemed to be always killing. With the two warriors Bhima and Arjuna riding in it and with Krishna as the charioteer, the beautiful chariot was radiant and invincible to all archers. It was on this chariot that Shakra and Vishnu had fought in the battle that Tadaka had caused. It was this chariot that Krishna ascended and left. It glittered like molten gold and was garlanded with nets of small bells. It thundered like rain bearing clouds. It was always victorious in battle and it always killed its enemies. It was on this chariot that Shakra had killed 99 demons. Having obtained this chariot, those bulls among men rejoiced. Then, on seeing the mighty armed Krishna and his two brothers on the chariot, the citizens of Magadha were amazed. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, divine horses with the speed of the mind were yoked to the chariot. When Krishna ascended it, it looked extremely beautiful. On that supreme chariot, there was a flagstaff that did not seem to be attached to it at all. It was divine in origin, beautiful, and with radiance that was like that of Indra's weapons. It could be seen from a distance of 1 yojana. Krishna thought of Garuda, and he immensely arrived the instant he had been brought up like that tall pillar of a temple. Garuda, eater of serpents, then sat on that supreme chariot on the flagstaff, together with many other blazing beings that had their mouths open and roared loudly, incapable of being seen by those beings. His blazing energy was like the midday sun with its 1,000 rays. On O king, that beautiful flagstaff never knocked against a tree. It was never injured by weapons. Through it was visible to gods and men. It was divine in origin. Achyuta, Tiger man, leapt on that divine chariot with the two Pandavas with the sound like that of thunder. King Vashu had obtained it from Vashava and Brihadatta from Vashu. In due course, it had passed from Brihadatta to the king who was Brihadatta's son. The mighty armed and immensely illustrious Kaksha came out from Giribraja and stopped on the level ground outside. O king, all the citizens with the Brahmanas in the forefront approached him there to know homage in accordance with the prescribed rites. The kings who had been liberated from their bondage, worshipped Madhusudana with words of praise. O mighty armed, O son of Devaki, aided by the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, it is not surprising that the protection of Dharma should be vested in you. Today, you have accomplished the task of rescuing King who had been immeasurably immersed to Jarasandha's terrible mire of a lake. O Vishnu, O supreme among men, we languished in that terrible mountain fortress. It is our destiny that we have been freed and you have obtained blazing fame. O tiger among men, O bull among men, please tell us what we should do. However difficult may be the task, know that the kings will accomplish it. Reassuring them, the great-minded Harikesha said, Yudhishthira wishes to perform the Rajsuya. He who lives by dharma wishes to become a sovereign emperor. All of you must aid him in the sacrifice. O Bulamunda Bharata lineage. Then all those kings gave their words and happy hearts. Give their words with happy hearts. The lords of the earth then made the Sharha share in their riches. Through disliked, Govinda accepted out of affection towards them. The Maratha Shadeva, Jarasandha's son, came out with his relatives and his advisers, with the priest at the forefront. Sadeva bowed down low before Vasudeva, god among men, and bowed down in homage with present of many gems. Krishna provided assurance to the pretended one. Then and there he instead Jarasandha's son, having been allied with Krishna and having obtained homage from the two Parthas, the intelligent king again entered Brihadatta city. The lotus-eyed Krishna, resplendent with supreme radiance and laden with many riches, with the two Parthas, Achyuta and two Pandavas, means Krishna, Arjuna and Bhima, went to Indraprastha. On meeting Dharmaraja, he happily said, O supreme among kings, through good fortune Bhima had killed the mighty Jarasandha. The kings who were imprisoned have been set free. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, through good fortune the skilled Bhimsena and Dhananjaya are well. They have returned unharmed to their own city. Then Yudhishthira worshipped Krishna as he deserved. He embraced Bhima and Arjuna in delight, having eliminated Jarasandha and obtained victory through his brothers. Ajasatru enjoyed himself with his brothers, the Pandava, and his brothers then went to the freed kings, and in accordance with age, showed them homage and paid their respects. They then gave them leave to depart. Having been thus addressed by Yudhishthira, the kings swiftly left for their own respective kingdoms on their different mounts, happy in their hearts. Thus did the immensely intelligent Janardana, tiger among men, get his enemy Jarasandha killed through the Pandavas, or descendant of the Bharata lineage, having ensured Jarasandha's killing through his intelligence. The conqueror of enemies then took leave from Dharmaraja, Pritha and Krishna, and from Subhadra, Bhimsena, Phalguna, and the twins, means Nakul Sahadev. Having taken leave of Dhamya, he prepared to leave for his own city in that cheap divine chariot, radiant as the bright morning sun. It had been given to him by Dharmaraja, and it thundered over the directions. O bull among the Bharata lineage, led by Yudhishthira, the Pandavas circumambulated Krishna, whose deeds never decay, or descendant of the Bharata lineage. When the illustrious Krishna, Devaki's son, departed, the Pandavas obtained great glory. They had won a great victory and had provided security to the kings. This deed added to that, O king, they themselves found great joy in Draupadi. The king was then famous for the protection of his kingdom, and in accordance with Dharma, did whatever was consistent with Dharma, Kama, and Artha. Next section, Arjun, Bhim, Nakul Sahadev, Digvijay Parva.